Song of Primigenia, Chapter 4, Nami. The, the adventure begins. One quick note before we start. This will be the first chapter where I'm going to have to break into two recordings. While I'm going to try to keep it as seamless as possible, I can't promise there may not be some break when I do have to stop the stream. So just be aware of that going into this. And let's go ahead and get started. Nami's eyes snapped open at dawn, cool air wafting through the window. What had awoken her? She looked over at her bedmate. Ken still slept next to her. At some point, he had let go of her body, but he was still snuggled into her warmth. Nami basked in the presence of the young man and kissed his forehead. Whilst she was still unsure what had woken her, now that she was awake, she may as well go get her gear. It would be easier, and she regretted not having realized that last night. She was loath to rise from the bed warmed by Ken, but with a sigh of defeat, she pulled herself up. She slipped out the window and flitted through the shadows to her own window and climbed in. She felt nostalgic as she took what could be the last look around her room for some time. Unlike Ken, Nami's parents had made her own little space from her siblings. Then, she noticed a figure sitting on her bed and sighed as she realized who it must be. Her brother's red eyes glowed in the dark. "So, little sister, I see you're still sneaking out to spend full moons with Ken," came Taran's voice from the darkness. Even without light, Nami knew there was a smirk like their father's on his face. "Are you that surprised?" she asked as she knelt and felt for her pack. She started doing a check on the contents. "No," Taran admitted. "You've been doing it for so long. So what woke you? I thought for sure we would have to wake you before dawn to set out for Rootford." Nami giggled as she weighed her water skin. "I wish I knew. I had a dream, but I can't seem to recall whatever it was." Taran was silent for a moment before his words came to her once more. "Yeah, you have always had trouble recalling your dreams. Maybe it's because you're crazy." There was no malice in her brother's words. Just his tone was teasing. Crazy or not, Nami had to agree he was right about her dreams. The only ones she could recall were about Ken and her in their special place. She rolled her eyes and moved over to sit down next to her brother and gave him a playful nudge. "Crazy, am I? Crazy is turning down Ingrid Applebeer's proposal, brother dearest." She could not see him in the dark. His head turned, but Nami knew he was now rolling his eyes. "She wanted me for my body, sister dearest. I don't care about what I can gain from marriage. In truth, I've always been jealous of how natural your love is. You and Ken have always been so inseparable. But you will need to learn to trust him to be alone and come back to you." She wanted to cut him off as a cold feeling entered her heart. This faded as she felt his hand touch hers, grounding her. "Don't mistake me, Nami. The bond you share is deep and pure. But we both know that bond is also your weakness. You and Ken need to learn to be apart as well as together." She wanted to argue with him, but bit back the retort. This was not the first time she had heard this from her older brother, and in her heart she knew he was right. Nami and Ken were rarely ever separated, and it was well known they disliked being apart. Taran pulled her into a hug as he pressed a kiss to her temple. "I know you're disagreeing with me right now. You have worked hard for what you wanted your entire life, this relationship included. Think about what I said. Together or apart, you and Ken can still be as close as you are now." Nami heard a creak from the bed as he rose. "Thanks, brother, for the advice. I promise I'll think about it." Taran chuckled in the dark. "Any time, little sister. Now, I'm heading to bed. Better go rejoin your patrol before he wakes. And Nami," a note of worry crossed his voice, "be careful out on the road. I know the trip to Rootford will be calm, but after that, well, a big brother worries about his little sister." She groaned as she rose and pushed her brother towards the door. "Go on, worrywart. Back to your bed. We'll be fine. I'll see you in Rootford on the way back from the ordeal." "I look forward to it. Safe travels." With that, Taran left the room. Nami waited until he was gone and scooped up her pack. She felt nostalgic, recalling the first time Taran had caught her slipping back into her room. He had not said anything, but she was sure he was biding his time for a lecture that never came. One day, she would need to ask him about that. Nami slipped out the window again and was on her way back to the arms of her partner. She woke up again a few hours later. Ken was already up and dressed in his leather tunic and breeches and was strapping his sword to his waist. She smiled, watching him get ready. She indulged for a minute or two, until he tried to put the sword in place, not used to wearing it at the hip. Why not wear it on your back like usual? Nami asked with a wink. You know why, he retorted, unsurprised at her being awake. Got to wear my pack instead. Still, it feels so weird to have it tugging on my leg. He had a pout on his face that softened her heart even more. It will be all right. When we get to Rootford, I'll make some adjustments to your pack to let you wear both on your back. Ken sat down next to her and ran a hand through her black curls. You're too good to me, Nami. She hummed at the sign of infection. Did I say infection or affection? It should be affection. And don't you forget it. Also, why aren't you wearing the new chain shirt? Too heavy, at least for now. I'd rather not put it on if I'd rather only put it on if I need it. Fair enough. Nami pushed herself up on the bed and grabbed her own leather traveling clothes. She slipped into them and tucked the tunic into the breeches. She put on the coat Gammy gave her, making sure to check the hidden blades within. Satisfied with the placement, she donned her pack, and she and Ken made their way towards the door. Ken ducked for a moment into his sister's side of the room and placed a kiss on each of their brows. May the guardians watch over you, Kisa and Kita, he muttered to the twins who stared in their sleep. Nami graced him with a radiant glance as he rejoined her, and they made their way into the main room of the home. Nami's eyes went over the familiar layout. Memories of her and Ken learning from their mothers flashed before her eyes. Her vision swam with tears at the thought of straying so far from home, but a touch from Ken dried them. They would make new memories on the road, with new faces and places. She steeled her heart. After all, this would be the first hurdle to overcome to fulfill their dream of being adventurers. This is still our home, came a whisper from beside her. We will be back in a few weeks anyway, once we complete the ordeal. This is not goodbye yet. The dark-haired girl brightened at the words of her betrothed. I know. Still, I can't help it. This is our first time leaving without the intention to return soon. So many happy memories here. It makes leaving so hard. But I know, together, we can make so many more. Ken winked at her and then tilted her chin back to steal a quick kiss. Nami returned it with all that she had. Then they were gone, headed down the road towards the village. The sun had started to peek out over the forest as the two of them reached Appleshade. The light touched down on the path and crept towards them as they approached the orchard village. Standing in the center of the road was the village elder Silverbushel, waiting for them with her cane held tight. Nami grinned, happy to see the older lady. The rising sun glinted in the graying hair of the elderly woman, giving her a mythic aspect as they went near her. The wrinkles on her face were a little less defined in the dimmer light, giving her a younger appearance. Good morning, Elder, Ken greeted with a wave. There was a mix of confusion and delight in his voice as he spoke. No doubt you're surprised to see me, children. The elders closed the distance between them. Regardless of tradition, I had to see you two off. I was the midwife at both of your births. It only seems fitting I should set you on to the path to adulthood. Nami's cheeks flushed at this kind gesture from the older woman. Ah, thank you. It means a lot to us. I'm sorry that it means stealing your sleep, though. Ken inclined his head in agreement. Yeah, it does mean a lot. Thank you, Elder. Silver Bushel nodded. Of course. I'm so happy to see you going on off on this journey. It seems like more and more youth these days are electing not to go on the ordeal at all. I fear one day it will become almost non-existent. Both nodded in response. They had heard this before. All right, enough of the ramblings of an old woman. You are to go to the temple of Ragnus the Fire Lion and pray at the altar there. You must each bring back a medallion from the temple as proof of your completion of the ordeal. You must travel on foot. You may not ride beasts nor use wheeled transport unless there is an emergency. Do you accept these terms? Nami wore a cocky expression as she replied, Of course I do. Right behind her, Ken also confirmed he accepted the terms. Silverbush handed them each a small bag. In these are some travel rations from the villagers and a small amount of money. Ordeal followers get free room and board during the trip, but I included some money as well. I wish these old eyes could still see one more time, so I could watch you walk off on the ordeal. But alas, it is not to be. Nami slipped her bag open, and along with the wrapped food packages there was a coin bag. She opened the string and found 10 silver coins inside. The elder smiled at the sound of the coins. Getting used to paying for goods and services is a good idea now. As far as I know, you haven't traded money for anything, have you? Nami rubbed her chin. Our parents took us to a festival in Rootford a couple of times. I recall we bought some candied apples with some small copper coins. Ken wrapped an arm around Nami as he chimed in. Oh, yeah, those were good. But our mums did include money in our education, though it's been some time since we practiced. Figures. Since they wanted to be sure you were ready in case you joined the family business. Silver Bushel pulled both youths into a hug. Please be careful out there. The woods and roads are dangerous, not to mention I have heard rumors of bandit activity. Crater City is only 2 weeks' journey. Stick to the road as much as you can. Also, when you reach Hartsdale, make sure you stop in at the Silver Bushel farm there. My sister runs it and would be happy to help you out if you need it. Nami consulted her mental map of the dale. Hartsdale is the last town before Crater City, right? No, there are a few villages between the two cities. There is a long road that will take around 10 days between the two. The city's name is Hartsdale due to all the major trade routes passing through there. Heart of the Dale. You will find all sorts of people and goods there. Watch each other's backs. With that, the elder let them go and stepped back. Nami and Ken patted her on the shoulder before the two of them walked past. Nami looked at the village as she walked, already missing the quiet little settlement. Some of the villagers greeted them as they went, spilling out words of encouragement. You two come back safe now, you hear? Watch out for each other out there! Bring us back something from the capital! That one the others silenced by throwing apple cores at him. Nami saw Ken shaking his head, a grin plastered on his face. There's no place like home, right, Nami? Nami took Ken's hand in hers, running her thumb along his skin. I couldn't have said it better. Come on, we're ready to take on the world. The day raced by for the couple as they made their way to Rootford. Nami's heart raced with joy at first. They were taking their first steps on their way to adulthood. This was all short-lived. Ha, I said lived and not lived. Suck it, Victor Bavine. Okay, that was unprofessional. I apologize. The road was well-traveled, so there weren't a lot of threats in this neck of the woods. They did have to move to the side several times to let carts from Rootford and Appleshade pass. They had both made the journey a few times before to see Tyrant. Having attended the market with their fathers, uh, the scenery was familiar. At midday, they stopped near a creek where the water ran fresh and clean for their luncheon. After eating some rations and getting a drink from the creek, the two were off and on. The two were off again down the road. They had planned a slower pace once they left Rootford, but they wanted to get this leg of the trip out of the way today. They made idle conversation as they went to help pass the time. As the sun set, Nami was happy to see the gates of Rootford come into sight. Rootford surrounded a bridge that crossed a river that flowed through the area. The town had walls of oak poles lashed together and sharpened at the tip. Magic beasts and bandits would attack the town, and the walls had evolved over the years to reflect that. Nami saw Ken's eyes glued to the smithy next to the river, which had a water wheel that helped maintain its fires. Nami nudged her betrothed. Hey, Ken, you all right? She teased her partner a little. Oh, yes, Ken came out of his fascination. Sorry, I wish our forge had that. Nami giggled in response. Yeah, but there isn't a water source large enough near us. I know, but a man could dream. Fair enough. Come on, though. We should get to the inn. Nami cut off mid-sentence as a voice sweet as honey came out to her. Hey, Nami Forgewood. Oh, this is going to be bad. I apologize for your eardrums, people. A blonde girl wearing a blue tunic and shorts came walking up to her, her feet bare. Nami could not believe her luck. It was Ingrid Applebeer, the very girl who her brother had turned down. She had the blazing eyes of a Crimsonian, and her facial features were striking. Ingrid was tall, taller than most girls Nami knew, and the very picture of beauty for their people. She had a moment of panic that turned to relief at the happy expression Ingrid had on her face. She did not seem to be harboring a grudge. Oh, hello, Ingrid. It's been ages since we last met. How's the family? Nami stepped forward, and the girls embraced. They had met the important figure on their last visit to the village. Ingrid extended a hand to Ken, who returned the gesture with a firm shake. That needs to be fixed. Doing about as well as we can under the circumstances, but Nami, this is no place for two friends to catch up. Oh, I was doing a southern accent. Why don't you stop by my home tomorrow for a chat? We could have lunch and talk for a bit. Sound good? Nami tried to marshal her mind to find an answer, but Ingrid was already bouncing away. Okay, see you tomorrow, Nami. I don't know if that was successful or not. Nami stood shocked. She had forgotten how strong Ingrid Applebeer's personality was. Ken wrapped an arm around her. What a force of nature, he remarked as they watched her disappear. No kidding. Will you be all right for a few hours by yourself tomorrow? No sweat. I want to check out the new store here, Sword and Board, and meet the shopkeeper. All right. I guess we will stay an extra night then. We can set off first thing the day after tomorrow. Nami was sad at the thought of delaying, but one could not ignore the summons from the Applebeer clan. Ken hugged her close, and she felt her cheeks warm at the contact. It will be all right. One more day won't hurt. Besides, Ken's eyes scanned the horizon, and Nami followed his gaze. A mass of dark clouds was creeping over the town from the north. Looks like a storm is blowing in. Might be better if we wait. That would be a bad start to our journey, getting completely drenched. Nami pondered. Reasonable, she admitted. Still, I'm not. If I'm not back at the inn tomorrow in time for dinner, come rescue me from Ingrid. Always, her partner promised as he let go of their hug. They soon arrived at the only inn in town, the Lion Glade, a place they both had stayed at on previous occasions. The foyer of the inn was very simple, with a fur rug on the wooden floor. No one was able to recall what animal it had been before anymore. A counter was set up with where a red-haired girl was working, eyes showing delight as the two marched into the place. She had a scar on her left cheek from a cooking accident in her youth, something to do with hot grease. The woman was only a little taller than Ken, unlike Ingrid, who might as well tower over him. Marcia, Nami exclaimed as she waved a greeting to the girl. How are you? Doing well, Nami, Marcia responded with a warm smile, beckoning them over to the counter. As they approached, they could see a slight bulge in Marcia's stomach. Doing well enough right now, but the mornings are kind of rough. She heard Ken's delight as she saw him look at the other girl's stomach. Congrats! I knew you and Eric had been trying since you got married. Thank you, Ken. We are hoping it's a daughter to be the heir to the inn, though we would of course be all right with a boy, too. The innkeeper smirked, a playful note coming to her tone. When are you and Nami gonna start trying? Nami felt her face turn as red as Marcia's eyes. She saw Ken fall back onto the rug in shock at the question. She tried to marshal her thoughts to answer the other girl when a Herculean blond man arrived. He had a good foot in height on the woman beside him. Marcia, teasing the young couple again, I see. Marcia's husband wrapped an arm around his wife as he winked at her. Yes, Eric, they're just so cute when they get all flustered. Nami puffed up her cheeks, annoyed at the teasing of the older woman. She saw from the corner of her eye that Ken rose from the floor. All right, but you might want to lay off that. Nami's face might get stuck. Ken managed to quip, and Nami drove her elbow into his side, causing a sharp exhale. The married couple roared with mirth as her partner crumpled back to the rug. We will take a room, please, Marcia, Nami said, her tone all business now. At least she hoped it was. All right, Marcia choked out, between fits of giggles. And you're on your ordeal, room and board are on us. It is our delight to serve you during this momentous occasion. Marcia bowed and showed Ken and Nami to their room. Oh, and how long will you two be staying? Ken answered, For 2 nights. Ingrid Applebeer invited Nami for lunch, and with the rain, we figured we would rest tomorrow. Marcia sounded delighted as she responded, That's a good idea. Well, tomorrow evening I would like you both to dine with us in that case. Nami and Ken shared a look before agreeing. They opened the door and headed into the room after bidding good night to their host. The room was spacious enough and had a small fireplace for use in cold weather to keep the room warm. The bed was large and spacious enough for 2 people. The quilt was beautiful, white, but had patterns of the 4 guardians on it. Above all, the fireplace was a small silver shrine to Ragnus, the fire lion. After a meal of venison stew and warm bread, Nami began yawning. Ken herded her to bed early, pretending to fuss over her as he settled her into the bed. Nami put up a token protest, but she enjoyed the attention as he tucked her in. Soon she felt him snuggle in next to her. His strong arms encircled her, making her feel safe. She closed her eyes, and sleep claimed her. The next morning, Nami was up before Ken, letting him sleep in since it was already storming outside. Having a few hours to kill until the lunch meeting, she dressed and started the alterations to Ken's pack. She was almost done when she heard the rustle of sheets. She turned and found her fiance looking out the window at the pouring rain. "Well," Ken said, "I was hoping it would wait before it rained. I didn't practice my forms yesterday, and I need to today." Her heart ached at his disheartened words. Ken loved his sword practice and hated to miss a single day. "You will be all right," Nami said as she finished touching on the alterations and turned to her partner. "The stockkeeper might have a place where you can sneak in a little practice." Ken perked up at this as he turned to face her. "You always know how to cheer me up. Thank you." She blushed and turned away. She heard him get up and felt his sudden closeness. She turned to see him smiling down at her, a wanting gleam in his eyes. As he leaned in, their lips met. Their kiss was hungry. Calloused hands touched her soft skin as her heart raced. The rain was very much forgotten as they gave in to their passions. A while later, Nami forced herself out of Ken's warm embrace. She wrapped herself in a cloak and headed off to meet Ingrid. As she stepped out into the dreary rain and dark, she was thankful that lanterns were lit outside most of the houses. Rootford was larger than Appleshade, but not by a whole lot. It only took her a couple of minutes to walk to the bridge and cross the swelling river, the Cinder. When she crossed the high water, she felt her throat tighten and her pulse race in panic. She forced herself to cross the bridge and paused to let the attack pass. Once she felt better, she continued on her way. Another 5 minutes or so, and she arrived at the large house of the Applebeer family, cloak soaked by the rain. For a split second, she worried she would upset her hostess with her state when she noticed how nice the house was. Then she realized how foolish she was being and laughed. No one could be presentable in this weather. Nami used a brass knocker to bang on the door, which opened, and a wave of heat struck her from within. Two pairs of hands grabbed her and dragged her into the entry hall, and she found two girls waiting there. They were two of the female Applebeers. She believed they were Ingrid's younger sisters, Sylph and Hella. "Hello, dear," Sylph said. She was a blonde like Ingrid, though her cheeks were a bit puffier and her eyes a bit more doe-like. "Let me get those wet clothes for you. I'll set them to dry while you meet our big sister in the library." Nami complied, handing her wet cloak, boots, and socks to the girls. She was in her leather top and pants as Hella showed her the way to the library. Hella had black hair like Nami's, but she was taller than both of her sisters, towering over Nami. Hella was wearing a dress of sheepskin dyed red, and her feet were also bare. The hallway led past a room that must have been the kitchen. There was a strong heat and the smell of wonderful food wafting through the air. She stilled her wheel and followed Hella to the far end of the hallway. Ingrid was waiting for Nami in a chair in front of the fireplace and waved at another chair as she entered. "Hello, Nami. Good to see you. Please have a seat." Nami slid down to sit in the offered chair, setting her bow and quiver on the floor next beside her. Ingrid took a kettle off the fire and poured two steaming mugs of hot apple cider. Nami could not help but smile as she took one of the mugs. The aroma reminded her of home. Ingrid then served her a bowl of piping hot stew. "Thank you, Ingrid. There isn't anything like our cider to fight off the chill." She sipped the piping hot apple drink, enjoying the sweet taste of home. "Of course, the elder of your home was kind enough to send me a barrel recently from last year's harvest. I knew I had to share it with you today when I saw the rain." Ingrid sipped her drink as well, and even in that, she seemed to have more grace than Nami. "I'm sorry you had to walk through that mess to get here." Nami shrugged as she took a deeper draught of the golden liquid. "No worries, the cider alone was worth the walk." She heard a giggle and could see the merriment in the older girl's bright red eyes. Ingrid didn't seem like a giggler from her looks or her usual personality, but this was a pleasant surprise for Nami. They sat and enjoyed their refreshments for a bit in companionable silence. Once they had eaten and finished their drinks, Ingrid cleared away their dishes before returning to her seat. So, you must be wondering why I asked you to come here today, Ingrid said. Nami nodded. Yes, though I have an idea. Is this about Taran declining your proposal? The blonde girl did not reply right away, taking a moment to study the fire. That is part of it, yes. I admit, upon further thought, I kind of rushed that marriage offer to him. I was in a state of shock after the death of my grandmother, and it hit me that I had no daughter of my own. Nami nodded and reached over to pat Ingrid's shoulder. I understand. I'm sorry about your loss, Ingrid. It must be hard. I don't know either of my grandmothers, but I imagine you must have loved her a lot. Ingrid sniffled. I did. Grandmother taught me so many things, Nami. Now she's gone, and Mother's all is away representing the Crimson Dale at the Coalition. It's just me and my siblings here. It's not exactly lonely, but you had a moment where you wanted a husband to help and close that gap in your heart. Exactly. And I'll be honest, my thoughts turned to you and Ken and your relationship, and I guess I had hoped that Taran, being your blood, would be the one to help me. I'm sorry if I upset him or you with that half-baked proposal. Don't worry about it. Taran's not the type to hold a grudge, and I have no desire to play dynastic matchmaker. The very thought of her trying to tell her brother whom he should marry set the archer into a fit of giggles. But he'd tell me to jump in the river. If anything, you honored him when you asked him to marry you. But we Forgewoods are romantics at heart and can only marry for love. Ingrid pursed her lips and took another drink for courage. I thought so. Her words were kind of melancholic, and Nami wished she could help, but her knowledge failed her. She'd only ever loved Ken, and he'd only ever loved her. She knew her relationship was rare, and it meant she could not give advice. I'm not the best person to give advice, but I suspect you want it. Ingrid looked in her direction, red orbs meeting her blue ones. Yes, you and Ken seem so happy together. How do you make it work? Hard work. Ken and I had been best friends since we were born. We know each other better than anyone else, and we trust each other. But we still argue and fight like any other couple. Plus, there are things he does that drive me nuts. Ingrid snorted. And there are things you do that drive him nuts too, I guess. Nami put on a mock look of insult, placing a hand on her breast. Of course not. I am perfection itself, ma'am. But Nami winked to show she was jesting. Her host laughed harder at that, shaking her head. Oh, Nami, I'm glad I invited you today. You cheered me up. Nami made a little bow. Of course, Ingrid. I am sorry that life has hit you so hard lately, and I wish you luck in finding a husband if you still want one. Yes, I still want to try again, but next time I won't come on so strong. An arranged marriage would be better for me anyway. The idea of marriage through agreement did not appeal to Nami, but it was not uncommon. It brought an uncomfortable thought to Nami's mind about her fate had things been different for her. She shuddered but banished those thoughts from her mind. She then realized that she had let the conversation die off. I wish you luck in that hunt. Nami broke the silence again, which made Ingrid's expression turn determined. Thanks. Now, let me tell you the real reason I asked you here. You see, recent reports have come in. There was a crash from the direction of the entryway. Nami grabbed her bow and jumped from her chair, stringing the weapon. I did actually have her string the weapon. Good job, Storm. The sound of stomping boots came from the hall, sending her heart into overdrive. From her right, she saw Ingrid ducking behind her own chair for shelter, pulling a knife from somewhere on her person. Who could be crazy enough to invade my home? Ingrid's voice was saturated with rage as her eyes scanned the doorway. Nami knocked an arrow as the footsteps grew louder. Will Sylph be all right? Nami asked her friend, worry eating at her consciousness. Her voice was low to avoid giving away their position. Ingrid didn't speak, just nodded in response. A large man entered the doorway, and coldness gripped Nami's stomach. The man had tanned skin and wild, unkempt hair. He had an eye patch over his left eye and a crude, curved sword. His right ear looked green from the cheap golden ring sitting in it. His eyes were the worst part. They were blue, but not the glowing blue that her own eyes bore. This was a commoner from the heartland of their country. She was ripped from her examination as the man spoke. I know you're there, Applebeer family. Give me all your valuables and your weapons, and no one will get hurt. He ran his hand over the curved blade. Sighing at the stupidity of this obvious bandit, Nami drew back her string and rose. She pointed the bow at his chest. Take even one more step this way and I'll shoot. Just lay down your weapon and surrender. The man paled at her words, but then grinned, confidence returning as he looked her over. She mentally sighed, sure this fool was about to say something stupid. What, a lovely creature like you? I bet you've never even shot that bow before. Why don't you put it down that man's weapon, and I can show you a good he was cut off from finishing his sentence, Nami moved her aim and released the arrow into his shoulder. It was the same arm he was using to hold his sword. The man screamed as the blade dropped to the ground, the shaft sprouting from his body. Bloody shadows, she shot me! Why did he go Australia just now? The bandit stepped forward at the now arrowless archer, but then Ingrid appeared beside him, knife to his throat. You shouldn't have insulted her like that. Her knife dug a little bit into the skin. Don't move. We have some questions for you. The bandit grunted, his eyes radiating fear as the knife tickled his throat. Then his eyes crossed as someone bashed him in the back of the head. Ingrid jumped back as the man fell to the ground. Sif was standing there, a cast iron pan in her hands. Are you all right, Ingrid? Sif asked, her voice filled with concern. I'm fine, thank you, sister. Ingrid lowered the knife and reached down to check the man's pulse. I don't think he's going to make it, sadly. I had many questions for him, too. Sorry, Sif spoke low, her voice full of sorrow. I didn't mean to kill him, but I don't regret stopping him. Well, he might live. Get Hela and take him to the village healer. Maybe we can get some information out of him yet. Ingrid turned to Nami then. Nice shooting. Cannot believe he called your bluff like that. Nami shivered, wiping the sweat now on her brow. Me neither. First time I've ever shot a person. I get the feeling it won't be the last either. Ingrid pulled her into a hug as Hela and Sylph picked up the man and began to haul him out into the room. As they left, Nami spotted a familiar mop of sandy brown hair appear in the doorway. Ken stood there, his eyes wide. His voice was hoarse as he spoke. I see they came here as well. Nami blinked, fear once more settling in her gut. They? Ken nodded. Yeah, seems we got a bandit problem here in Ruford. And that is the end of Chapter 4. The adventure begins. I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, sorry for my newness at this. I'm hoping that I'll get better as I go. I had several stumbles, a little bit of word mess ups, found a couple of problems that I'm sure I'll be getting on the rewatch. I've been rewatching these videos the day after when I've had a chance to desync from it, so that way I can listen to it fresh again. So that'll be really good for my editing and getting things fixed up, because I've found several mistakes while doing this. So I'll get some of those things fixed up, and the next video is not going to be until on Monday when I post up on Royal Road and Scribble Hub. So my plan from now on is going to be listen to the chapter in Natural Reader, which is the app I've been using to listen to text. Then I will post up on, or I'll probably do the recording first. That way I can find any extra mistakes that I missed through the Natural Reader. And then I'll post up on the web novels, and all three will go up simultaneously. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.